Amanda Leitner, and welcome to Rochester Rising, where we amplify the stories of Rochester entrepreneurs. Welcome to episode 193 of the podcast today. So today on the show, I got to chat with two members of Nanodropper, which is a Rochester-based startup. Launched in 2018, Nanodropper offers value-based solutions to close health equity gaps while promoting patient education and advocacy. The Nanodropper company is named after their first product called Nanodropper, which is an affordable FDA-listed eye drop bottle adapter that decreases the volume of oversized drops to reduce the waste and cost of eye medications. So on the podcast today, I was joined via Zoom by Allisa Song, who's the CEO and one of the 4 co-founders of Nanodropper. We are also joined by Robbie Spencer, who's the new marketing manager for this Rochester startup. So on the podcast today, we chat with Allisa and Robbie to learn more of the Nanodropper story and learn more about their starts as entrepreneurs. We also learn about the inspiration for the Nanodropper product and how the team came together when half of them were students and used a lot of student-based pitch competitions for their initial seed funding and also to connect with their early investors in the company. Nanodropper was also a recipient of a Launch Minnesota Innovation Grant. On the show today, we also chat about a lot of exciting new developments for Nanodropper, including scaling from a team of 4 co-founders to now 7 people, a recent patent utility they received, and the official launch of their product this summer. So stay tuned today for a great conversation with Allisa and Robbie from Nanodropper. So as a reminder, we release a new Rochester Rising podcast every Wednesday. We actually did not release a new one last Wednesday, so if you were looking for one and didn't find one, hopefully you weren't too disappointed. But I was at a conference last week, a virtual conference, so I was not able to have time to edit and record a podcast. But we'll have a great podcast coming out in a few weeks, more about that conference, which was called eShip, for ecosystem builders across the U.S., had some really great lessons learned, some great conversations with some people supporting entrepreneurs all across the United States. So we will share that with you in a few short weeks, so stay tuned. A reminder for all of you that Rochester Rising is the storytelling arm of Collider, which is a Rochester-based nonprofit that supports Rochester early-stage entrepreneurs through events, education, space, and storytelling. You can find out more about Collider on our website at collider.mn. We put out a new podcast every Wednesday on Rochester Rising, and you can also find our podcast on YouTube. So if that is where you like to listen into podcast content, we have a playlist totally dedicated to our podcasts. So check it out there if that is your preferred way to listen in. All right, so now on to the podcast today with Allisa and Robbie of Nanodropper. Well, thanks so much to both of you for being on the podcast today. I appreciate your time on a beautiful Friday before the long Labor Day weekend. So thanks for being here. And right off the top, I just wanted to let both of you kind of introduce yourselves and share a little bit of your background and journey up until Nanodropper. Let's start there, and then we'll move forward afterwards.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us too. This is my first podcast, actually, so I'm a little nervous. But my name is Allisa Song. I'm the current CEO and one of the 4 co-founders of Nanodropper, where we have created an eye drop bottle adapter that will potentially save billions in medication waste, 1 drop at a time. So I took quite a bit of a roundabout way to get here. I'm currently also a medical student. I'm a 3rd-year medical student at the Mayo Clinic, which has been so great and a bit of a whirlwind right now. But I guess starting from undergrad, I studied biology and psychology at the University of Washington in Seattle. And in my last year there, my best friend took me to this class that she was interested in. And it was a class that preps you to enter into the environmental innovation competition at UW. And it was really cool. They brought in MBAs and basic scientists and engineers and put them in one room and told them to make teams and create a solution to an environmental problem. And so I had just finished my summer class helping out with the UW in experimental farm. And I was helping lay down drip irrigation. And if you haven't ever done this before, there are these giant 50-pound rolls of drip tape that you have to carry onto the field, lay them down, and then bend over every few feet to kind of staple them into the ground. So that was kind of what I pitched. That was the first pitch that I ever did. And that was the idea behind my first company called Tape It Easy. And we created a hand-powered tool for small-scale farmers who currently had no tools to lay down drip irrigation. So that was my first step into entrepreneurship. And even while doing that, I ended up working for a neuroscience lab that I did my undergrad project on. And that's where I met Mackenzie and Jenny, the other two co-founders of Nanodropper. And I guess that really, to be easy, I definitely attribute to sparking the entrepreneur in me. And I don't think I could live without it. And it really did encourage me to keep thinking about solutions to problems that I see on a daily basis. And I kind of think of myself as a half entrepreneur and half inventor, kind of a mix of the two. So when I first read the ProPublica article that was featured on NPR about how patients were having a difficult time affording their eye drops because they were not only too expensive, but it was coupled with the fact that they were oversized. And so you were paying for all of this waste that you couldn't even benefit from. And when I heard about that problem and how it was contributing to the barriers that patients face on a daily basis, in addition to actually causing patient harm by creating more systemic side effects and the such, I thought this would be a problem that I could try and tackle. So 2 years later, this is me now.
Yeah, so I'm Robbie Spencer. I joined Nanodropper full-time at the beginning of July. I moved to Rochester about a little over a year ago from South Florida, where I grew up, spent most of my life. So I came here with my partner, Eva, who finished med school at the University of Miami last year and now is an orthopedic surgery resident at Mayo Clinic. So most of my background is in journalism. Wrote for a number of publications in Southwest Florida, mainly in Naples. I did some freelance work for the New York Times. And I do have a bit of an entrepreneurial background as well. About 5 years ago now, I launched a free digital news website along with a few other people in my hometown in Naples. So I really got the entrepreneurial bug through that and just kind of understood what it took to start a business like this. So when I moved here, I didn't have many contacts and started working with a local medical association and did some part-time writing for Mayo Clinic, the Education Shield. And then right before everything started taking a turn with the pandemic, I met Allisa and her fiance Elias. And I just saw all the pieces in place for this business. And my background in storytelling and journalism, and then the entrepreneurial side, I think is what really drew me to joining as the marketing manager with Nanodropper.
No, I think that's really interesting because I hear over and over again that there's no pool of like early stage employees in Rochester. And this is proving that that's not true. So I'm kind of interested, did you guys meet through an association with Mayo? Was it just random, or how did you both meet each other here in the community?
So I will answer that. So when I knew we were coming here, Eva opened the letter in March, and we had to be here June 10th, basically. So I immediately started going on social media, and Mayo is great with just like understanding that there's a lot of spouses that come here with not many contacts. So at the very least, you get an email from people in the program that they're joining. We actually found our realtor through the orthopedics department. Shannon, who kind of is the brains of the operation in the ortho department at Mayo, was very responsive to me and told me about some social media pages to join. So I joined the Mayo Families Connection Facebook page, and I actually found my first job through there, and then in Rochester. And then Christy Hargis, our digital content creator, who also is a spouse of a Mayo Clinic medical student, is a colleague of Allissa's. She posted the job about the marketing manager position. So I reached out, and we hit it off. And then I met Allisa back in March.
Yeah, I think that there's so much talent here. And maybe in the future, we'll have a lot more startups that are able to take advantage of the talent that's around here. But we found ourselves to be in a really fortunate position with both Christy and Robbie.
Yeah, no, that's great. It's just, getting connected into those networks and utilizing it, it's awesome. So we talked about the problem already a little bit, but can we circle back to that a minute and just talk about, Allisa, and both you and Robbie have had very different entrepreneurial experiences, starting in agriculture. What kind of drew you to this problem of like prescription waste, patient harm? Why are you passionate about this?
I first learned about the problem through the ProPublica article, and it was written by Marshall Allen, shout out to him, and it was titled "Drug Companies Make Eye Drops Too Big and You Pay for the Waste." And it was all about how since the beginning of these eye drops, they were created to be oversized, and the waste really becomes a problem when these medications are hundreds of dollars, either with or without insurance. And the article spoke about how specifically glaucoma patients, and this is a chronic disease that they have to pay for these medications for the rest of their lives, were really struggling to keep up with the financial barrier to care that they were facing. And I had previously felt some of those struggles myself, not to this extent, but knowing how important it is to be able to have access to healthcare was personally important to me. And when I read this, I first thought, how do I get around all of this mess? The healthcare system is so complicated, and how do we go direct to the patients to help them out? And that's how I thought of an adapter. We don't have to work with anyone other than the people using the eye drops themselves, by being able to give them a tool that they can use with their medications that they already have. And that's kind of how Nanodropper was born. And I think in the future, I'll always try and redirect my energy into helping solve the problems that contribute to the disparities and the outcomes that we see in healthcare.
Yeah, I think when you really stand back and look at it, just a lot of the waste and I don't want to say misuse, but, excessive use of some of these medications. Like you were saying, for some people, it's so hard to pay for this anyway, people who don't have insurance. So it's, making sure it's used to its full efficacy and directed to where it needs to go,
Yeah.
it seems like a problem that should have been solved a long time ago. It's crazy but we need people to see those solutions, be creative and innovative about it, and bring them about.
Absolutely.
I'd like to make a point about that, actually. Going back to that ProPublica article that was written back in 2017. And one of the primary sources for the article was a man named Dr. Robbie. And he is one of the leading authorities in glaucoma treatment. He's done a lot of research specifically into microdrops. And he has basically proven with his research that smaller eye drops are just as effective as larger drops, and actually it actually can make it so that there are less side effects from your medicated eye drops by having these smaller drops. So we reached out to him recently and had a Zoom chat with him, and he has been one of our biggest supporters ever since. So to me, being someone who is not from the medical field and just joining this company, to go back to that original article that inspired the Nanodropper and talk to the man who is one of the leading authorities in smaller eye drop research, I think it really validates the idea and just proves that we just need to get this out to people. It's a $14.99 adapter. So, the price point makes it so that it's attainable for anyone. So I just think from a storytelling perspective, we come from a place of authenticity. So that's what really excited me to jump on board, because, I'm a storyteller. So to me, all those pieces were there, and to be able to help people. I just think at such a scale that we're going to be able to do so is really enticing.
So you said the company started in 2018, is that right? 2 years?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, and I know you guys have some exciting news with getting your adapter out there, patent approved. So can you talk a little about that, kind of the timeline from when this started, what it was like to develop the adapter? And can you talk a little bit more about that? Because I want to make sure everyone understands what it is. And then kind of exciting recent developments with the product getting out onto the market.
Yeah, sure thing. I can talk about kind of like that front part of it. So for those of you not familiar, Nanodropper adapter is an adapter for eye drop medication bottles that reduces the size of the drop so it can be fully absorbed by the human eye. The human eye can only absorb about up to 10 microliters, and the current droplets can be up to 40, 50 microliters in volume. So that difference is what allows us to let our patients save up to $2,500 per prescription per year. And, all the rest of the health benefits that come with smaller eye drops as well. When we first started developing the Nanodropper, half the co-founders were students. Mackenzie was transitioning from her undergrad to her master's in bioengineering, and then Jenny was in grad school for her PhD in pharmacology. They've both now graduated, and now I'm the student, but we didn't really have the means. Me, Elias, Jenny, and Mackenzie, we were all kind of recent grads or students. So we didn't really have the bootstrapping funds to take us from idea to prototype, or even seeing kind of a manufacturable prototype. So what we did was we took advantage of the fact that some of us were students and started doing student competitions. And that's how we got the first little bit of funding to get us going. And I think it taught us to be really frugal and mindful with how we spend our money, because we had such limited funds at the time. And to our surprise, we did quite well in those student competitions. And in the beginning, I think our first one was the Holloman Health Innovation Competition at UW. And we got one of the runner-up awards. And then a full year later, we received the first grand prize award from the same competition. And that's also where we made the networking and the relationships for our first investors as well, our first serious investors. So we really do attribute a lot of our early success and our ability to prototype and gain those milestones and traction through the competitions and the people that we were able to meet there.
That's really interesting. I guess I didn't fully appreciate that a lot of your seed funding came from like doing these competitions and putting yourselves out there.
Yeah.
Which is really, because that's like such a hard, like you were saying, that's so hard to get off the ground, especially when you're students, you're really just getting started in life, life after school. So yeah, that's super cool. And did you guys also receive Launch Minnesota funding and innovation grant, or am I misremembering?
We did.
Okay.
We did. That was actually one of the things that really made us decide to set up home base in Rochester and bring on Robbie full time. So we definitely attribute that.
Okay, so if we circle back, so the product now is people can purchase it and you guys have it patent protected now, right? And that's been pretty recent over the past couple months, which is a huge accomplishment and step forward.
Yeah, the patent was huge. We worked with a firm in the Twin Cities for the patent process, and we were recently granted the utility patent that covers any adapter for use on any squeeze type bottle that reduces the volume. So that was a really big win for us in the company. We were worried for quite some time, as with all of the other small businesses and startups that went through this process. But our funding situation was up in the air when everything closed down because of COVID. And we were supposed to launch in the spring. And of course, with all the disruptions in supply chain, and especially as a medical device, we wanted to give way to all the emergency supplies that were now being manufactured and sterilized in the US. But fortunately, we were working with US manufacturers, so we were able to launch still sooner than if we had gone overseas, which we're so grateful for. So we launched officially at the end of June.
Very cool. Well, congratulations.
Thank you so much.
So are you guys selling primarily direct to consumer, or do you go through, I guess I'm not sure who you would go through, an ophthalmologist or optometrist, and you can tell I don't fully know what the difference is. So who is kind of the customer?
Yeah, that's a pretty common question that we get. We wrote an article about it, so we want to plug our Nano News blog. We wrote about, the differences between opticians and ophthalmologists and optometrists, everyone who is involved in your eye care. But just like you said, we are available online, and we provide free shipping if you get an annual supply, which is 4 Nanodropper adapters. But we are also working with private eye care clinics. So whether that be your optometrist or your ophthalmologist's office, we are selling directly to them so that patients are able to pick it up with their visit. And also the Nanodropper adapter can be used for the in-clinic eye drops as well. So they're almost always small businesses as well, suffering from the clinic closures that happened. So every penny counts right now. And we were happy to be able to be helpful. Yeah.
I will say too, going back to your blog that you talked about, for you don't see a lot of healthcare companies putting out a lot of content, and you guys do, and it's really creative and innovative. So I think that's really kind of refreshing to see, because I feel like you guys put out a lot of content on your blog and getting yourselves out there to let people know what you're doing and about yourselves.
I got to thank you, Amanda, because that validates all the work I've been doing. So.
Absolutely.
We really wanted to focus on simple eye education, just to make eye care more attainable. Because I think knowledge can sometimes be, a barrier to care, like not understanding, like you said, the difference between an optometrist and an ophthalmologist. So even I have been learning as we've been producing this content. So it's been great.
Yeah. Well, I think even having people realize that, your eye only can absorb, what did you say, 10 microliters, and your, a normal dropper is 40. I mean, when people say that, you're having, 4x waste, like, then you start to get people, in motion and get them, passionate about, that problem, or realizing that it was a problem they didn't even know was a problem, but that they're dealing with in one way or the other.
Yeah. And people experience it all the time. I mean, when you put in an eye drop, there's always that little bit that trickles down your cheek. And it's not because you're missing your eye.
Yeah, that's what I would think. That's what most people would probably think, that you're doing something wrong.
Yeah.
Not that like your actual body capacity cannot handle that.
Exactly.
I will say in my case, maybe sometimes it is that I miss my eye. Because I'm terrified of taking eye drops.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I know, like you were saying, Allisa, you went from 4 co-founders, and now you're kind of a team of 6 with 2, with Robbie and your other social media manager. What has kind of the growth and scaling over the last few months been like for Nanodropper, and what's it like to bring on other team members?
Yeah, we have 7 people total. In addition to Robbie, we have Christy, our content creator, and then we also have Alina, who is our account manager. So she's the person that's been handling kind of all the traffic that comes from our patient and our clinic inquiries. But it's been super exciting to see the team grow. I personally find it really cool that we're creating jobs and opportunities that didn't exist before, especially in Rochester. And the team dynamic is changing with the addition of people, and it's sometimes a little scary because, as one of the founders, you feel like you need to have this type of control over where the company is going, but being able to kind of let people do their job and let them do their thing, and seeing all the projects come together has been an amazing experience to see.
Yeah, I think that's one of the hardest things for people, is letting go of some of that control and just leaving people. I'm reading a great book. I'm finally reading it, which is horrible because we had the author on a Collider Spark series like 3 weeks ago, but I'm so behind in my reading. But it's called The Creativity Leap by Natalie Nixon, and just talking about, how, and it's a little like outside of my comfort zone because it's, as a former scientist, you're very like rigid in how you do things and how you think things should be done. But it's like moving between like protocol and imagination to like really allow people to reinvent how things are done and, perhaps get a better outcome at the end. So that's been really interesting. I recommend that book and that process to anybody in like leadership roles or just in general, because it's really interesting. So you guys have had some major accomplishments over the last couple of months. Like we talked about, the patent, getting this product out there, launch Minnesota grant, and you're now contracting with the Air Force. Is that correct? So can you talk a little bit about that and kind of what that's all about and what that means for the business?
Yeah, we're super excited to be able to bring Nanodropper adapters to the Air Force to serve the active military personnel on the bases. The SBIR grant is to adapt our device to whatever the needs of the Air Force are. And our goal is to get this into the hands of everyone. And so that definitely includes the United States Air Force, as well as the other branches of the military and the VA system. That's another that's another wish list clinic system that we would love to work with.
Yeah. No, that's an awesome client to get for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
And I was just going to say, it's a no-brainer, right? You need good eyesight, and to maintain good eyesight for the Air Force.
Yeah, absolutely. So I wanted to circle back and ask you, so you talked about your team and about that you're half here, or some members are here and some are in Washington. Mm-hmm. For a lot of us, it's a new thing to have kind of remote teams since COVID hit, but you guys have been doing that kind of since the start. So, what have been some best practices to develop a remote team? So I know a lot of the times people too have concerned about how do you develop culture when everyone's not in the same spot. So how has that kind of worked for your team? What strategies have you used when you can't be in the same place?
Yeah, that's a great question. We really do utilize software to bridge a lot of the gaps. We currently use Discord, which is traditionally something that's marketed to gamers as a way to chat while you're playing games together. So we use that as a co-working tool to be able to be in the same voice chats, have different chat groups for different topics. And I think we're able to communicate efficiently by being connected when we're working through that. I think it also helps that the co-founders all kind of knew each other and worked with each other for years before even starting Nanodropper. We were all great friends, and we also have virtual happy hours, and we actually play games together on Discord too. So we do our best, but I think that you definitely have to kind of go out of your way to create that, since it's not something that will naturally happen as you would see in a traditional office.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's definitely key or very helpful that you all the co-founders knew each other beforehand, in person, we're friends. It definitely helps, pull that thread, along when you can't be in the same place or aren't in the same place. I think we talked a lot about some of these things already, but, for people listening, you talked a lot about, accessing pitch competitions,
mm-hmm.
Maybe doing things that people wouldn't think about to propel your business forward. Are there any other resources that you used in the ecosystem, whether here in Rochester or in Washington, that were key for growth that you would encourage people to think about in their business?
Yeah, I'm just trying to think about what resources we used. Of course, since we did have that student connection, connecting with our entrepreneurship school was really key. Even though none of us were in the program, we know them very closely now. We went through their accelerator programs and the such. But if you do have the ability to go to these pitch competitions, I think that they just open up so many doors, and the networking potential at these events is huge. There's definitely online communities. I personally found it a little bit difficult to find other entrepreneurs that were making physical devices, especially medical devices. So I kind of went rogue and started messaging people, like cold messaging people on LinkedIn, who were kind of doing the same thing that we were doing. And I was able to build a little community that way as well. So I'm trying to think if there was one central source that I went to. I think it was just word of mouth, meeting people, kind of like that. And then in Rochester, the annual entrepreneurship week, I met a lot of people through those events as well.
Cool. And yeah, it's disappointing that we can't have that this year, obviously.
Yeah.
But, I think there are other things. Yeah. And I think we actually met at Walleye Tank a few years ago.
Yeah.
So whether that was a useful connection for you or not, that's where we originally met.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Can't forget about Walleye Tank.
So you guys have done a lot. You've done a lot of pitch competitions, which, so I guess one question for you, which is kind of off the cuff. So, I have a lot of conversations with people, and one of the things they have a lot of questions about is how to develop a pitch and how to kind of polish that. So, and I feel sometimes scientists are really good at this and MDs, and sometimes they're not very good at this. But like, what did you have mentorship or anything, or what really helped you guys with your pitch and perfecting that?
Yeah, that's a great question. Also, I wanted to say that I learned about Walleye Tank through the Entrepreneurship Week as well.
Okay.
So all roads lead back to that.
Okay.
But, I think creating a good pitch is something that doesn't come naturally to a lot of people. It certainly didn't for me. It was something that I built up just like any other skill with a lot of practice and a lot of pitches. Again, the competitions, you kind of learn to refine your pitch. You get so much good feedback as you go. And I was able to do that with the first company, and even more so with Nanodropper. We've just done exponentially more pitches than I have ever given in my entire life. But I think once you learn the craft of making a pitch, you're able to pitch things that aren't even related to your device, or like for school projects, and pitching things to your friends to convince them to do a specific thing with you. Yeah, I think it's just a valuable skill that you learn as an entrepreneur. But if you're able to find someone who has gone through it before, I think there's a good recipe that you can take and translate to whatever you want to pitch.
So I guess my final question for you guys, until move into some final fun ones. I guess for over the next couple months, what do you see as some immediate next steps or goals that you're looking to accomplish with Nanodropper? What are you excited about right
now? Personally, I've been really happy with the feedback that we've been receiving from both patients and their providers on how we're actually helping individuals save money on their eye drops and afford certain medications that they normally wouldn't have been able to, in addition to helping out clinics. And just the personal stories really make all the difference for us. And I'm really looking forward to the word spreading and us being able to reach as many folks as we can. And Robbie?
I'm excited to also get the word out there. And it's like I had said before, it's been a really educational experience for me, learning a bit more about eye health. And then the response we've been getting from people to not only learn about Nanodropper, but to get involved in the educational content side has been really rewarding. We actually just posted a guest blog post today from one of our partner clinic physicians, Dr. Rourke. He owns a clinic in Indiana. So just making those connections and just letting people know the value of this device. And it's just really exciting to be a part of this team. It's been a lot of fun.
So really it's huge education, marketing, and customer acquisition phase over the next fall, over this fall.
Yeah.
Well, I have some final fun questions for you guys that I've been asking to everybody to wrap up here. So I'll ask both of you. I'm a huge reader of all kinds of things. Oddly, I don't listen to too many podcasts, probably because I just don't commute anyway. I mean, my commute's 10 minutes. But what are you both reading or listening to right now?
I can answer that really quickly. I have this fabulous book called First Aid for USMLE Step 1.
Oh my God. That does not sound interesting.
10 out of 10 would recommend. That's definitely one of the things that I lose out on, kind of doing both the student or wearing the student hat and the entrepreneur hat. I lose time on being able to read and listen to things that aren't related to school or ophthalmology right now.
So I am reading something that people would probably consider a little dense for, casual reading, but I have a friend who is an award-winning journalist for The Guardian, and her name is Mary O'Hara, and she has written extensively about austerity in the United Kingdom. She's I believe she's from Ireland. So she wrote a book recently called The Shame Game, Overturning the Toxic Poverty Narrative. And it's really been eye-opening because it really exposes just for decades how politicians from both sides of the aisle, journalists, TV broadcasts, just how people who are impoverished have been demonized in the United States and the UK, where, the two of the richest countries on earth, and how they've been demonized for decades. And just she is one of the leading authorities internationally, in my view, on this topic. And she's been doing a lot of great work exposing that. And she also is actually in the podcast business. She works with Jonathan Van Ness from the Queer Eye group. He has a podcast called Getting Curious, and she works with him on booking people. So shout out to Mary O'Hara.
Very cool. It sounds interesting. I'm sure kind of heavy, though, at times, obviously. Yeah, I remember when I was getting ready to take my graduate school exams, back to the comment about you only read medical stuff. And I was told I had to do like a huge vocab review for like the GMAT. So you like wouldn't like fail the like vocabulary like portion or, like the reading comprehension, because you only read like medical and scientific texts. So just to like expand, because you lose that if you don't like use it. Okay. So next question for you guys. I feel like we are starting to get out a little bit more, but what is each of your favorite places to be in Rochester? If you could be anywhere right now, where do you like being?
Well, I like Douglas Trail. I do a lot of biking when the weather permits. And then from a downtown perspective, I enjoy Blue Duck Kitchen. I miss being able to hang out there. And then Bitter and Pour.
Oh my gosh, I love Bitter and Pour.
I heard it's opening back up next Wednesday. So a little shout out to Bitter and Pour.
That's awesome. Yeah, we did a little collaboration with them for the Children's Museum last year.
Oh yeah.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. For Innovationology, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was super fun. I guess that's another thing that we'll miss out this year. I guess my favorite places in Rochester are places not really I can visit because they're privately owned, but one of my favorite animals are cows. So living in the northwest part of Rochester, I get to see cows every morning and in the afternoons, just like grazing and chilling. That's probably my number one spot right now in Rochester, just driving by those farms. And then my second is probably in my backyard. I really miss being able to host my friends and have barbecues and stuff like that. Definitely the first thing that I'll be doing when we're able to again. And then I have 2 dogs with me here. So, yeah.
Yeah, they like to enjoy the backyard. No, I
Absolutely.
totally hear you. We put a lot of effort into making the backyard like an oasis, especially with like you can't go anywhere. We couldn't even have anyone over this summer or didn't feel comfortable with it. So it's been, now it's kind of sad because everything's kind of starting to die a little bit as we, get into fall.
Yeah.
But no, I totally hear you. I live by, and I don't know what exactly it's called, but it's right across from Red 45 or 44 or something like that. There's a llama or alpaca. I don't know which farm. Oh. And I love it. I go past them and I wave, I'm like, llamas are out. Yeah. They're just really kind of nice to see, in a semi-urban environment.
Yeah.
Llamas. And I totally get it with the cows. And
oh my gosh.
It's just peaceful.
Yeah, especially moving from a city like Seattle. It just, it gives me appreciation for being able to live in a city like Rochester right now, where we have a little bit more room to breathe and we can go out of our house and not have to worry about the density of people.
Mm-hmm. So my last kind of fun question for you guys, like I said, I feel like, the restrictions of COVID have kind of lifted a little bit. We are like back at work for some part, but while we were going through all of this and, Robbie, you're getting a job during the pandemic, how did you both kind of personally deal with COVID, getting through it, the isolation, and even stuff with your company that I'm sure was kind of stagnant as everyone was during that time?
Well, I mean, I was kind of occupied with getting up to speed with Nanodropper for quite a bit of it, to be honest. For a little while, like for a short time before I joined in July, I was doing a little bit of work on my own and just kind of jotting down ideas. And that really took up a lot of time. And then just hanging out with my dog. And I didn't really know how to cook before I moved here, but that really accelerated the last few months, learning new dishes and things like that.
Yeah, I think I picked up a lot of hobbies to fill my time. One of them, I did all the quarantine hobbies that people picked up, like making your own sourdough starter, baking banana bread and banana muffins. And also I got into houseplants. I think a lot of us are into houseplants right now. Oh my gosh, the prices on some of these plants are crazy.
Yeah.
Interesting hobby. And then of course having the dogs, and I also have bunnies in the house. I'm a huge animal person.
Me too. If I could have more, I would.
Yeah. So it was so nice being able to spend more time with them during the day. And I think I really got to enjoy that time together.
Yeah, no, I totally hear you. Yeah, spending time with the animals. And at first my dogs were annoyed that I was home all the time because they have their sleep time.
Oh my gosh.
And now everyone just kind of got used to it. So yeah, they're fine with it now. But yeah, houseplants, some of them are like, there's this really cool, I guess it would be considered a succulent store in the Twin Cities called Mother, which is kind of an out there name. But I always want to go get them, but they're like super expensive, like upwards of like $100 some for like a cactus. And I'm like, I just can't do it. I'm sure like that takes a lot of effort to get it from seed to that, and I would probably kill it. So I'll probably need some pointers from you if I ever get a semi-expensive house plant, because I seem to kill them all. So outside's fine, inside no.
Yeah.
That's funny.
And yeah, if you're ever, as an aside, if you're ever looking for a really interesting looking houseplant, there's these things called Monstera albos. They're a really infrequent mutation that happens at the stem. And so they can't even be grown from seed. And there's plant auctions.
Wow.
For them.
Wow.
Yeah.
So like this is something you'd have to break into your retirement fund to purchase. Awesome. All right. So my last question for you guys as we wrap up here, I'll ask you for any final thoughts and where is the best place for people to find Nanodropper and learn more about your company and what you're doing?
Yeah. To learn more about Nanodropper, you can follow us on all the social media outlets. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and you can also follow us and read our articles on nanodropper.com.
Thanks so much to Allisa and Robbie for taking time out of their schedules to chat with me today on the podcast. We had a lot of fun learning more about their story, talking about our fascination with animals, plants, etc. So it was a really fun conversation. I really appreciate their time and sharing of their story. So you can find out more on their website and on their social media accounts, which are linked in our show notes. So you can check them out there. So if you loved this podcast, make sure that you check out more of our stories on rochesterrising.org. And really the best way to stay up to date is to subscribe to our weekly newsletter. It comes out under our sister organization, Collider, and shares all of the stories, news, and education from Collider that week. So check it out. It comes out every Sunday morning. All right, that's a wrap for us on the podcast today. Make sure that you are subscribed to the Rochester Rising podcast so that you never miss a story of entrepreneurship and innovation coming out of Rochester, Minnesota. We'll see you here next week with a brand new story.